Welcome to Unspoken Affairs. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the powerful real-life stories we share every week. Your support means the world to us, and it keeps us bringing you raw, emotional journeys that stay with you long after the video ends. Now, let me take you into a story that changed my life forever. Story of choices, silence, and consequences. I never imagined one ordinary evening could alter the course of my entire existence. What started as a simple dinner, a quiet night at home, slowly unfolded into something I never expected. My name is Eleanor, and this is the story of how loneliness blurred my judgment, how one night of weakness became a burden I still carry, and how the echoes of silence can sometimes be louder than words. That summer, my house felt like a waiting room. Every wall seemed to hum with emptiness, every room colder than the one before. My husband George was always away traveling for work, chasing deadlines, staying at hotels, making promises to come home soon that he rarely kept. His absence became routine, and his phone calls became shorter, filled only with logistics, bills, schedules, updates on things that needed fixing. We rarely laughed anymore. We rarely touched. Our marriage had become a business partnership disguised as love. Nights were the hardest. The silence pressed against me like a weight I couldn't push away. I'd sit with a book, turn pages I couldn't remember, pour myself a glass of wine, and let it go half-finished. Loneliness became my shadow, following me into every corner. I missed the woman I used to be, the one who laughed easily, who felt alive. Somewhere along the years, she had slipped away, leaving behind only the ghost of routine. It was during this time that Nathan entered my life. He wasn't a stranger. He had been recommended by a friend of George's who knew we had a spare room to rent. Nathan was 24, polite, and trying to find his footing in life. He had recently left his hometown, was searching for jobs, and needed a place to stay while figuring out his next steps. On paper, it seemed harmless. Just a tenant, just a young man passing through at first. That's all it was. We were simply two people sharing the same roof. We exchanged polite words, talked about groceries, laughed over the occasional movie. There was nothing unusual in the beginning. If anything, having someone else in the house lightened the oppressive silence. He filled the kitchen with his late-night snacks, the living room with background noise of TV shows I barely noticed, the hallway with footsteps that reminded me I wasn't entirely alone. But silence has a way of amplifying things you don't notice at first. And soon, I began to see details I hadn't before. The way his laughter lingered after a joke. The way he noticed small things about me, my taste in books. The music I played when I thought no one was listening. Even the perfume I wore on days I tried to feel like myself again. Then one evening, the shift happened. George called to say he would be away for another week. His voice was tired, distracted, more concerned about a meeting than the fact that his wife hadn't seen him in days. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine and settled onto the couch. The house felt heavier than usual. The silence sharper. Nathan appeared, dressed in sweats, hair damp from the shower. He looked younger than usual, but there was a certain seriousness in his eyes that night. He sat across from me, unusually quiet. And then, after a long pause, he said softly, "You look lonely." I brushed it off with a smile, told him I was just tired. But he didn't stop looking at me. His gaze wasn't invasive, but it was searching, as if he could see through the walls I had built around myself. Something inside me stirred, something I had buried for too long. Attention. Simple, human attention. Over the next few weeks, small exchanges grew heavier. We'd talk late into the night, not about anything important, but about everything we carried silently. He spoke of pressure, of not belonging, of trying to prove himself in a world that constantly compared him to others. I spoke of loneliness, of how routine had stolen the joy from my marriage, of how I missed being seen. Our conversations were innocent, but beneath them ran an undercurrent neither of us acknowledged. One night, our words slipped into confessions. He admitted he noticed the sadness in me, the way my laughter seemed forced. I admitted I missed feeling like myself. Walls that had taken years to build began to crack. When he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. When he said my name with a softness I hadn't heard in years, my resolve wavered. I wish I could tell you I stopped it there, that I stood up, walked away, reminded myself of boundaries that should never be crossed. But I didn't. That night changed everything. The details don't matter. What matters is the choice the moment I let silence turn into something else. Something dangerous. That morning came with a weight that pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. Guilt filled every corner of the house. I told myself it was a mistake, that it would never happen again. I avoided Nathan, kept my distance, convinced myself that one lapse didn't have to destroy everything, but guilt has a strange way of binding people closer. Nathan didn't pull away. He lingered. He found excuses to be near me, passing me notes with small compliments, brushing against me in the kitchen, catching my eye in moments too quiet to ignore. His eagerness scared me, not because it was wrong, because it mirrored my own longing. One evening, he asked me, almost pleading, "Don't you feel alive with me?" And the truth slipped out before I could stop it. I did. Not alive in the safe, steady way my marriage had once made me feel, but in a raw, dangerous way that made me remember who I used to be. It wasn't love, not in the true sense of the word. It was need. It was hunger. It was the temporary escape from emptiness I had been carrying for too long. From there, everything unraveled faster than I could control. Each shared glance became a thread pulling apart the life I thought was steady. Each confession whispered in the dark became another stone on the path I couldn't turn back through. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. They live in the air, in the tension, in the way you look over your shoulder, convinced someone knows. Every rationalization, every compromise lays the groundwork for consequences waiting to unfold. I knew this, and yet I kept going. I told myself I deserved happiness, that George's absence had left me no choice, that what I was doing wasn't really destroying anything because it was contained within these walls. But lies, even the ones you tell yourself, grow heavy over time. Looking back now, I see the truth more clearly. I see how loneliness made me weak, how silence convinced me to settle for shadows of affection, how choices made in whispers can echo louder than screams. Maybe one day, the truth will spill out. Maybe I'll have to answer for it, for the pain, for the fallout, for the reality that I betrayed not just my husband, but myself. For now, the weight of that night lives inside me. A memory that cannot be erased, a turning point that shaped everything that came after. Nathan still wanted more. And if I'm honest, a part of me did too. But life doesn't pause at the height of desire. Morning always comes. And with it, the realization that some boundaries once crossed can never be repaired. And that is my story. Not one of romance, not one of passion, but one of choices, silence, and consequences. A reminder that what feels small in the moment can grow into something that changes everything. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you. Stories like these are not easy to share, but they are important because they remind us of the fragility of human connection and the cost of silence. Don't forget to subscribe to Unspoken Affairs for more stories that reveal the unspoken truths we often hide. And if this story touched you, leave a comment below. Love to hear your thoughts. Until next time. Remember, sometimes the loudest secrets are the ones we never say out loud.